Hello guys, Loelios here, and this is the second part of my Problems with Rank series. Um, Quick reminder, this series has been created to highlight what the common issues that have come across in my games. Season 13 was really bad for me. I encountered tons of issues, not related to myself, that much at least, um, but related to uh, the social approach of the entire community towards ranked games in general. So in the previous video, I spoke about toxicity, how it's plaguing like nearly every game that I've played in season 13 at least. There is like there are many more issues which I will be covering throughout my mini series, but in this video I'm going to talk about one tricks. So uh, just a quick breakdown of what one tricks are. There are two kinds of them. The first kind of one tricks is that of players that will stick to just one hero for the entire match, no matter what the situation is. They will not swap off that hero to counter the enemy comp. They will not swap off that hero to stall the objective. They will not swap off that hero even if they are doing a trash job. And that is obviously a major issue. And the second kind of one tricks are those that will play just a single role for their entire game. If they are playing DPS, they will not swap to support or tank at any point, even if required. And just similar to the hero one tricks, they will end up um, indirectly throwing the game for their team. So, what is the issue with one tricks? And I'm sure all of you have come across several one tricks in your competitive games. The issue with one tricks is that there's no hero in Overwatch that works in every single situation. Every hero has a counter or multiple counters and has multiple heroes that they counter themselves. So for instance, if you have Brigitte counters dive heroes like Winston, D.Va, Tracer, and Genji. But Brigitte also has counters like Pharah, Junkrat, like Hanzo, Widowmaker, things like that. So it's like this for every single hero. You cannot expect every hero to be run efficiently in every single team comp in Overwatch. This game is essentially a huge gauntlet which has been designed like a complex game of rock, paper, scissors. So you have to be thinking about what heroes you're playing in every single game and if you're actually countering the enemy team. Because if you don't either counter the enemy team or mirror their comp, you don't have a very high chance of winning that match. This is a known fact in Overwatch throughout all ranks. Now, we've spoken about what one tricks are, but we haven't spoken about what motivates them really. So one tricks essentially, so there's this major problem in ranked where people don't respect what the other players wish to play in that game. So let's say there are three people who wish to play DPS because let's face it, this happens in every single game. There are three people who wish to DPS in that match. How do you decide whom you want to let DPS? Generally, the meta is for two supports, two tanks, and two DPS. That is the general meta, but triple support and triple tank are okay as well. So let's say three people want to DPS. How do you decide who gets to DPS? In situations like this, you need to consider stuff like what DPS these different people play, how much, how well they can flex to other heroes or roles, and if they themselves have a lot of playtime on the heroes that they wish to play. And I get that sometimes players are completely new to that role and just for that season they wish to try to play DPS. But you can't expect to get the role you want in every single game. You can't expect to get the role you want in half your games. Speaking very frankly here. But this is the case with Overwatch, and you can't just be like, I don't want to follow the system that the game has made. Because we have no choice. And frankly, the system the game has isn't really bad. It's just that the people are misinterpreting what they can and cannot do in ranked. And they're essentially ruining the entire experience for 11 other players. Or at least 5 other players, those in their team. But If you don't let a person play what they want, and if this happens in every single game where you just install out what you want to play and don't swap off, it it promotes that same kind of behavior on other players. They're like, in every single game, I have to flex to another role or another hero. Why shouldn't I do the same to others in my upcoming games? So this is kind of contagious, right? One tricking is contagious because once once players experience one tricks on their team, they feel really, really mad that these players can one trick and get away with it. And they are like, even I should do that. I should install out. Continue playing that hero throughout the match, whatever happens. And that's not really a good thing. You're essentially compromising the hard-earned SRs of five other people on your team, right? Because your hero is not going to work against every comp. Anyway, so how do you deal with one tricks like this? You know that like these one tricks, I don't think any one trick essentially wants to be a one trick. They want to be playing different heroes, but the approach of other players to rank does not let them. And obviously, toxicity is another factor that promotes this. Once the insults start flying, banter starts happening, you just feel like to hell with all of this, and you just want to play the hero that you planned on playing earlier. That's not ideal. So when you get a one trick on your team, there are two things that you can do to still try and win the game, and still have a decent chance at winning the game. And the first thing you can do is try and play around them, quite simply. And yeah, I mean, this is a controversial statement. It's like, why the hell should we play around people who are not considering their teammates at all? The point of ranked is to win, right? You need to put all of your egos aside, and you need to play whatever the hell the one trick needs you to play them. At that point, you need to be as adaptive as you can be. If you play around the one trick, and one tricks do have a lot of playtime on the hero that they or the role that they're one tricking, so it's likely that they are able to adapt in a lot of situations, but no one can adapt in every single situation. So if your team is still able to play around the one trick and do a good job, you're still able to win, or let's say you're able to push the payload almost to the final point, there's no reason to ask that one trick to swap off because you're winning. In this case, you do need to think about your SR. In cases like these, letting the one trick do their thing is what is good for you and for your team. But there will always arise a situation where the one trick isn't doing well. This is either because the one trick themselves is actually doing a trash job, or because the enemy comp counters the one trick spec. So in a situation like this, where you're unable to play around that person as well, you need to just consider that person null and void in your game. This is the approach I have gone with, and it has obviously you still have a really low chance of winning in a scenario like this. But the best thing you can do is pretend like the one trick isn't in your game. The rest of you need to play like you're in a 5v6 situation and let the one trick do their thing. Even if this means that you need to go for an off-meta comp like triple DPS, or even like a Goats comp without comps, which is really risky and still off-meta, it is it is worth the try because you're doomed anyway if you don't adapt. So, and before anyone flames you for the statement that Goats comp is off-meta, I do consider it off-meta and ranked because there are lots of people who don't wish to communicate. And Goats comp without communication, it's a comp that relies on micromanagement of cooldowns. If you don't have effective communication and the enemy team does, your Goats comp is going to get destroyed. That's a fact. I've tried this out in ranked. It's never worked for me when the enemy team is communicating. So, essentially, yeah, these are the only two solutions. If you can play around the one trick, do that. If you cannot play around the one trick, pretend like they weren't there and continue to play the game your way. If five people on the team are playing something that they're comfortable with, or at least something they are good at, which sometimes, yeah, if you made a Venn diagram out of the two, it would probably intersect a lot. But if someone is good at something, it's likely that they're comfortable playing that, and vice versa. So if five out of six people on your team are playing something they're good at, it still raises your chance of winning. Other than if one person was playing something that they want to play, and the five others were just trying to fill. And if you promote one tricking, guys, it's really not good, because one tricking can result in a lot of toxicity in your games. It can result in lots of unnecessary banter, and mostly, one tricks won't even join voice chat. That's a fact. One tricks won't even join voice chat. They'll just mute every single person just by not joining voice chat, and they will continue to do whatever the hell they want to do in the game. And it's best for you to ignore them at points like this. You don't need toxicity, like I said in my previous video. You don't need toxicity in your life in general, especially in your ranked games. That it can really reduce morale. It can really reduce your chances of winning. Also, one final tip: before you label someone as a one trick, try to observe what's exactly going on in the game. So, okay, again, this probably lowers my credibility. I'm a Torbjorn player. You probably already kind of cringed at that. Uh, a lot of people just label me as a one trick if I don't swap off. Quite simply, they don't realize that there are 5 other players in the team who can make things simpler. It's just easier for them to flame the top. So don't do that. If, like, obviously if I'm doing a trash job, I will swap off Torbjorn. If you see someone playing an off-meta pick like Torbjorn, Symmetra or Bastion and not swapping off even if you're losing, don't label them as the problem or as a one trick. You need to analyze if there genuinely is a good reason to flame them for what they are doing. Like, for instance, I was playing Torbjorn once, and I was literally destroying the enemy until one of the DPS swapped from, I think, Tracer to Pharah, and then that Pharah kept destroying my turret. We had a McCree on our team who not once killed the Pharah. She was farming her barrages really quickly because of that. And ultimately the team was like, Torbjorn, you're not working well. You need to swap off that hero. And no one noticed that the McCree, who is a hard counter to Pharah, wasn't doing a good job. So don't be blinded by stereotypes. Don't be blinded by hatred for certain heroes. Keep an open mind, and you will definitely make rank a healthier place for players to live and for players to interact and grow. Um, and yeah, that's all from my side about one tricks. If you liked what I had to say, feel free to like the video. It's not for I'm not really publicizing my channel other than for this mini series that I'm doing. If you feel that you disagree with something I've said, feel free to comment. We can actually have a pretty healthy discussion. Try to keep it civilized, sorry. Um, and feel free to share this video if you think others should also watch this. Even if you don't, it's fine. Um, I'll just share it a few times myself and see if I get some traction. Um, but yeah, as long as you learn from this video, if you learn not to one trick, and if you learn how to identify one tricks or not incorrectly label someone as a one trick and play around one tricks. I've said one tricks a lot right now in the past 10 seconds. Anyway, if you've learned all these things, my job is done. You're going to make rank a better place by carrying these values, these ideas with you. And I really thank you for that if you're actually going to learn from this video. So I hope you have a nice season 14, and I'll see you in the next video, which will be about Smurfs. Thanks again for watching. See you.